Hello and welcome to Invest Gauteng. I am Godfrey Motizwa. Now, Gauteng is well known as the place of gold, appropriate as it is gold that built it to become Africa's richest province, contributing nearly 35% of South Africa's gross domestic product, which is equivalent to 7.8% of the total GDP of sub-Saharan Africa. It truly is the economic powerhouse province of South Africa. Invest Gauteng is a 7-part series focusing on different key investments that transformed, modernized, and re-industrialized Gauteng. Each episode will showcase these segments, and so we start today's edition looking at Gauteng's transformation over the past 25 years.
Gauteng is the smallest landlocked province, yet a gateway to Africa and the rest of the world, with a high number of global companies, diversity of economic sectors, leading universities and research institutions, just to mention a few. The concentration of the national population and growth makes Gauteng city region pivotal to the national agenda on transformation, modernization, and re-industrialization. Now, over the past 25 years, the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, the GGDA, has facilitated 115 investments worth 10 billion rand. These investments are 6.9 billion rands worth in foreign direct investment and 3.1 billion rands worth in domestic direct investment. Some of these investments cover areas that did not exist before, like the special economic zones, innovation hubs, improvement on tourist spots and attractions, urban renewal projects, increase in public-private investments like Gautrain and the TMH Group, and many, many more.
Well, I think the past 25 years in Gauteng, and that's the 25 years of democracy, really mirrors what has been the events at the sovereign level, at the national level. The first one was that we've been able to increase the basket of services. We've been able to get closer to universal access with regards to basic services, water, electricity, and sanitation. We've been very aggressive in rolling out low-cost housing to restore dignity to our people. We've been able to ensure that there is sustained growth, but that growth, although it's sustained, it's not been at levels that are desired for us to be able to make a meaningful dent to issues of inequality, unemployment, and poverty.
There's been a phenomenal shift from manufacturing towards the financial services in the first instance. Secondly, there has also been a significant shift in the types of businesses that you find in Gauteng as a city and as a province. And thirdly, the participants in the Gauteng city region, if you would call it, have also been much more diversified and much more cosmopolitan and globally linked. And therefore, what you then find is that these changes have also demanded also the changes in the demographics of the people that are participating. Now, whether that has had the right positive impact in relation to the our population demographics, some of that has could be said yes, but some of that could still be said to be still lagging behind quite significantly.
In terms of just economy, I don't want to be a naysayer. There certainly has been a number of investments infrastructurally in South Africa, and to the extent we've invested infrastructurally, there's at least it's something tangible. So you see infrastructure, you see Gautrain, you see a number of things, a number of investments that we've made that I think hold us in good stead, but I think there are a number of challenges, surmountable, but you know, we all need to be sort of firmly on the ground and pushing ahead and doing what we can, and seeing these incremental steps sort of pay dividend over the long term.
Some of the incremental steps that have been taken over the past 25 years include the opportunities for the betterment of townships. Township economies grew to the point where projects are set in place to improve the livelihood of its citizens. One such place is Winterveld.
I think Winterveld, more specifically, is quite a marginalized historic community. In the past, when we had the Bophuthatswana provincial boundaries, Winterveld was felt within the Bophuthatswana government. When South Africa absorbed Bophuthatswana into its national priorities, it further then fell into the Northwest Province boundary. Subsequent to the boundary being changed many years ago, it then fell into Gauteng provincial government, and then also within the city of Tshwane metropolitan boundary. So the community of Winterveld was quite geographically disadvantaged, very geographically removed from the center of the economy, being the city centers itself. So it was identified to be quite a priority community that needed the support, which they were very marginalized from due to the geographic distance from its markets.
It's important to keep in mind that the shift into highly sophisticated, state-of-the-art financial services has been a key driver to not only Gauteng's economy, but South Africa's economy. And therefore, it's important that if Gauteng is to remain the largest and the lead economy of the country, it needs to provide avenues around which other parts of the country can grow and can also be transformed in a manner that actually meets the various industrial sectors throughout the value chain, including changes in the demographic participants that are involved in a range of those particular areas. So rural development of South Africa, in the case of South Africa, is highly dependent upon the extent to which the financial services that are headquartered particularly in Gauteng invest in those initiatives that are in the rural areas in order to transform the growth and economies of our rural areas.
There's been headwinds with regards to the prospects of growth, starting with the 2008 global economic meltdown. I don't think that we've sufficiently recovered out of that. And of course, with all of that, there's been rampant urbanization. And this is a meta trend. I mean, if you look at many parts in the world, especially the developing countries, because I think the developed countries have gone through this process some time ago. Now the urbanization is rampant in the developing countries. We're the least urbanized region. I'm talking sub-Saharan Africa. But if you like, urbanization find greater expression, preeminence in spaces like Houghton, and also in migration. People from outside the borders of the country coming to this small space that occupy only 1.2% of the total landmass of the country, looking for opportunity. So we think that there's opportunities that they present themselves. We are about to exploit them and ensure that on the back of that we reindustrialize, ensure that there's sufficient skills or appropriate skills imparted in young people to participate in the mainstream economy. We are getting there. We think that by the conclusion of this sixth administration, we have made a significant impact.
The story of Houghton over the past 25 years. With me in the studio to unpack that story and where it is going from here is Muzi Matema, Group Executive of Business Intelligence at the Houghton Growth and Development Agency. Muzi, thank you for your time. So, you know, we take many things for granted, but when I look back to what Houghton was and Johannesburg was in the last decade or so, one of the investments that stands out for me is the Gautrain. But you guys have not stood still and said there's this stock investment that is already here. You've found new projects, and I also find that very impressive and interesting as well. Yes. What stands out for you?
I think in responding to you, maybe let me walk you through a journey. It's ironic that you touched the Gautrain first. So the agency that I represent, the Houghton Growth and Development Agency, was really birthed back in the early days of our democracy. Back in 1996, through an act of provincial legislation, there was the formation of the Gauteng Economic Development Agency, GEDA. A few years down the line, there was the formation of Blue IQ, which was also an entity tasked with economic infrastructure and catalytic investments throughout the province. And one of those projects, ironically, was the Gautrain. So the Gautrain was actually an initiative of this provincial government to catalyze economic development in the Gauteng city region. And from that development in the Gautrain, you've seen a lot of mushrooming, particularly around Sandton, around the airport area. But the Gautrain is not the only initiative that the formation of GGDA through Blue IQ and GEDA formed. one of an exciting investment which really changed the shape of this province was the Automotive Industry Development Corporation, which is a subsidiary of the GGDA. And basically, back in 1994, we accounted for barely less than 5% of automotive production in this country. Now we account for close to 42% of automotive production. So there's a lot of exciting stuff around the auto sector that we've done, including the formation of the new Auto SEZ, which was launched barely 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely. And of course, when people talk about what has been done before, the question then becomes sustainable, and where do we go from here?
Yes, I think the word sustainable is one that really looks at even the impact of what these investments have done into the ecosystem. Back in 1994, Gauteng had 3 million people fully employed. In the past 25 years, this province has been able to double the amount of people employed to close to 5.3 million people. Is it enough? Perhaps not, but then the fact of the matter is, in the country, we've been able to mobilize jobs for more people than any other city region within this context. But going forward, Premier Makuria was very succinct in pronouncing the economic vision of this province, and that is one of evolving into a multi-tier special economic zone province. We at the Houghton Growth and Development Agency will be at the forefront of implementing that.
In addition to those, though, you know, we are entering this period where people are talking about the fourth industrial revolution and how it's going to change economies. And you would imagine Gauteng being, shall we call it, the economic capital of Africa. That has to be a conversation that's taking place surely in Gauteng.
Yes, the most industrialized region in the continent, economic capital, you're right. But I think we as agencies, as well as economic departments, at the forefront of policy formulation, also take into account that we are a city region that is always in continuous transition. In your intro, you spoke about us being originally a mining town. From being a mining town, we moved into a deeply manufacturing town, into also a financial services based town. But also are cognizant that future skills and the development of innovative skills is key. One of the SEZs that we'll be launching will focus on that. But over the past few years, we launched what is called the Innovation Hub, which is a subsidiary of the Houghton Growth and Development Agency, which has a very specific focus on 4IR innovation skills, also capacitating entrepreneurs to be ready for those type of jobs. There's a lot of incubation that happens there in various sectors, from bioenergy, green pharmaceuticals, but also because we have a specific narrative in this country that spatially displaces certain peoples, we have sort of like franchised the Innovation Hub throughout the townships in what we call a Kasi Labs concept, which basically rolls out what the vision of the Innovation Hub in Pretoria is to previously disadvantaged communities.
Absolutely. And have you seen any kind of support coming through from the private sector on that front?
So we in everything that we do, we exist to create an enabling environment from the private sector. So all these spaces and these ecosystems that we create are done in collaboration, and also to attract the private sector.
Muzi, thank you for coming in and kicking off Invest Gauteng today.
Thank you, Godfrey, and thank you for
Muzi is Group Executive Business Intelligence at the Houghton Growth and Development Agency. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, goodbye.